My name is Alicia Staley. I'm going to talk about creating a patient community. So I'm really the patient perspective on the panel today. So I'm going to tell you how, from a patient perspective, how I see social media as a tool, in particular in cancer survivorship. So, and I like to say that all you need is a hashtag and a dream. So I borrow that. That's the New York State Lottery. Instead of $1 and a dream, you just need a hashtag and a dream. So, anyways, my journey. I'm a 3-time cancer survivor. I was first diagnosed when I was a sophomore at Syracuse University studying aerospace engineering. I wanted to be an astronaut, but after dealing with the severe form of Hodgkin's that I had, my astronaut dream sort of came back to earth. I was treated with surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy over a 3-year period while I still stayed in school to try to basically finish up my education. So I graduated with all my friends that were also on the 5-year plan, but they just had different reasons. They perhaps studied and partied a little bit more. But anyways, in 2004, I actually was diagnosed with more cancer. I had a mammogram on April Fool's Day, and I don't recommend that. And unfortunately, they found some breast cancer that day. I show you these are my before slides. I like to tell everybody. Because right around the same time I was going through this, the Museum of Science in Boston actually put out a call for people that would be willing to share their scans to talk about medical imaging, the importance of medical imaging and all the different kinds of medical imaging. And my friend worked at the museum, and she called me and she said, would you be willing to share your slides? And I said, well, you just sort of hit the jackpot, because I've got about 15 years worth of slides. So they actually did a presentation that I'm in at the Museum of Science on the importance of CAT scans, MRIs, all sorts of different radio tests. And I think Lucy, sitting in the audience, actually.
I heard her voice. I went to the Science Museum and it said Alicia, 3-time cancer survivor, and I said, what are the chances? And then her voice came out.
So she just literally like 2 weeks ago called me and she said, I think I saw your exhibit at the museum. And here she is sitting at the presentation. So after the Hodgkin's, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, not only once but twice. So I dealt with it in 2004 with mammocyte radiation. It came back in 2007. Actually, to this day, actually about 6 years ago, was the day that I made the decision that I needed to have a double mastectomy to basically treat the second round of breast cancer. So that's where I am today. Over the 22 plus years that I've been dealing with my cancer survivorship, I've realized there's really 3 distinct phases of what I've gone through. There's a diagnosis and treatment phase. There's this immediate time after diagnosis, perhaps right after you finish treatment, where you're sort of in this like no man's land. And then you graduate into where I am now, this sort of long-term survivorship, where a whole host of other issues begin to unfortunately crop up. The longer you live after you've been treated with this stuff, that sometimes side effects from the initial treatments catch up with you. But this was a big day in Twitter history. So in the middle of my recovering from the double mastectomy, I had a lot of friends that were coming over, and Twitter was really sort of catching on in Boston at this time. And they said, you gotta just log into Twitter, just I know you're going to love this tool. You're going to love it. Just sign up. So I signed up, and my friend said, "Go, just search on cancer survivor. Just see who's out there." So I typed in cancer survivor, and I was amazed at the number of profiles that came back where people had said, you're talking about leading with your weakness, or sharing something that you have. I was blown away at the number of people that said, I'm a 2-time cancer cancer survivor, I'm a cancer survivor, I'm living strong. And I just couldn't believe that in less than 30 seconds, I had found a new community of essentially new friends, cancer survivors. And within about a half an hour of being on Twitter, signing up, doing some searches, I typed in breast cancer, Hodgkin's, the cancer survivor. And I found a woman in San Francisco who basically had shared the same cancer journey. She was a junior at USC when she was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, and she was just going through breast cancer treatment herself. So to me, Twitter shrinks the world very, very quickly. I mean, I had a brand new friend that could relate almost to the day of what I was going through. The power of that was just amazing to me. Starting on Twitter, I sort of branched out into all these different areas. I'm on Facebook now, Google+, LinkedIn, YouTube. I have my own blog at awesomecancersurvivor.com. I run a Twitter chat called BCSM. I launched a nonprofit foundation, and I'm on the Health IT, the Health Information Technology Policy Committee in DC as a patient with IT experience. So I've sort of broadened my range and my, I don't want to say influence, but my impact, basically starting with an afternoon on Twitter. And this is how I ended up here. Still find very interesting. But here's a key stat that I think sort of drives the point home for all of us. 85% of patients agree that social media plays some role in healthcare decisions. So if you are a healthcare organization and you're not considering that stat as a way to engage with your patients or engage with new patients, I think you're missing the boat. I think it plays out.
Was that asked of people already on social media?
I'm sorry?
Was that question asked of people already on social media?
It was across the board. It was a random survey of people, of users of social media and not social media. So that's a good question. Yes, it is. I think the sources are cut off on here, so I can get that to you. Another one of my favorite quotes comes from Charles Safran from Harvard. Patients are the most underutilized resource, and they have the most at stake. They want to be involved, and they can be involved. Their participation will lead to better medical outcomes at lower costs with dramatically higher patient and customer satisfaction. And I show that just as a way, it's just a reinforcement that there's patients out there, there's patients building communities online that are out there looking to make connections with healthcare organizations, with doctors, nurses, social workers. The patients want to help, I think, is the bottom line. Now I'm briefly going to talk to you a little bit about how I have come to build patient communities on social media. So really, communities come in all shapes and sizes, and you can basically find them anywhere. My favorite example is if you go to Amazon, you type up, American history, or pick a topic or something like that. After you look at the book and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, Amazon has a question or comment feature, and essentially what you are viewing is a community that's come around, aggregating around the topic of American history or whatever it is. It's fascinating to go to Amazon and type in breast cancer or Hodgkin's disease or liver disease, heart failure, anything like that, and scroll to the bottom and see the robust, very intense conversations that are going on around a healthcare subject on Amazon. Mm-hmm. It just, patients are having conversations where they can get to, or where they can find other people that are going to respond to them. The same thing is happening on LinkedIn. There's, for every business-oriented or productivity improvement kind of LinkedIn group you think you can find, there's an equal community on healthcare issues. There's breast cancer communities on LinkedIn. There's Hodgkin's survivor support groups, very specific disease-oriented groups within LinkedIn. And the intent purpose of LinkedIn was a professional networking website, and there's health communities there too. You know, Ed's already talked about the Facebook communities. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a Twitter chat that I started a couple years ago, which was inspired by a chat called Healthcare Social Media that was running on Twitter. So basically, a hashtag is a way to identify a community or a topic that people might want to talk about. What we did is we came up with this breast cancer social media Twitter chat hashtag called BCSM. And essentially what we did was formalize a virtual meeting space for breast cancer survivors, caregivers, anybody that wants to talk about relevant breast cancer topics to join us, myself, and Jody Shoger, who's another breast cancer survivor, and Dr. Deanna Atai, who's actually a surgical oncologist based in California. The three of us moderate this chat every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which we've taught the community to come to Twitter every Monday at 9 o'clock and bring your breast cancer questions. Bring your breast cancer questions. Are you having trouble with treatment? It's a virtual support group. This actually grew out of my personal frustration with going through the breast cancer support group at my hospital and realizing that when you're 18 months out of your last treatment, you sort of graduate from the support group in that hospital. And I actually felt like that was the hardest time for me to walk away from the support group. That's when I was really starting to deal with some of the issues from my cancer diagnosis, like trying to get back into my life, trying to get back into, you know, a normal way to move through my day. And when I felt like I needed the hospital the most, they weren't there for me. So I turned to Twitter and said, is there a way that we can formalize a virtual support group and have people show up? We launched our first Twitter chat on July 4th because we figured it's a holiday, and if everybody's out watching fireworks, then we can claim, well, nobody showed up because everybody was watching fireworks. But to our surprise, 75 people showed up and tweeted and said, you know, tweeted out, well, we've got one eye on the fireworks, but I really wanted to see what you had to say because I need this. I need support. I need community. And we knew from that moment on, we sort of hit a home run. So basically, we've run the Twitter chat every Monday night since that day, with the exception of, I think we took a break for Christmas one year. But we've had over 1,000 hours of conversation, Twitter chat conversations. We've had over 1,000 people join us throughout these different conversations. We've invited other patients, we've invited physicians, psychologists, social workers to come on as our guests for a Twitter chat. We talk about survivorship issues, we talk about death in the community. We just felt this was a natural evolution of using a hashtag to identify a topic, but to build a community around it. And here's just sort of a screenshot. After every chat, we take a nice little visual of all the different Twitter avatars of people that have participated, and it just gives you a nice visual of who's there. I think I see Dr. Sevilla, you're down here.
I made it.
Yeah, you made it. Yeah, so, anyway. And then here, just a couple things that we've learned running this chat. You have to be very consistent. If you say you're going to do a Twitter chat on Monday nights, you better do it every single Monday night, whether or not you feel well. There's no excuse. But we've been very good about sharing the work with the co-moderators. So between myself, Jody, and Dr. Tai, we talk during the week, we develop the topics, we sort of hand off the workload to each other. And we're always planning the next topic, the next guest, the next thing. And then just a thought for the AF4Q community here today. What can you learn from patient communities? And information, and I really should say vetted information, is the currency of patient communities. This is what we trade in. Some people trade baseball cards. Patient communities trade information. this is what keeps us going. So our experience is valuable. Our experience builds the information and the knowledge base for the overall community, and this is what we try to share patient to patient. And then finally, lessons sort of learned from this whole thing. And you'll actually see some of these words that showed up on the slides last night in the keynote. So I was like really psyched that that they had mentioned commitment and consistency last night, because these are two of the key things that we've found in building a virtual community online. You've got to have a commitment, and you have to be consistent. You can't say you're going to do one thing and then sort of veer off or let the idea die out. You have to keep with it. You have to be very transparent about who's behind it. The three moderators, everybody knows who the moderators are. We introduce ourselves every single Twitter chat as the moderators. There are people that come on the Twitter chat that are in very dire straits. We try to be as empathetic as possible. We also try to, if that's in danger of sort of hijacking the conversation, we try to move it offline and make a phone call or have Dr. Tai reach out to the patient that's really not doing well, just one-on-one to sort of mitigate what would happen on the Twitter chat. And then just the community itself is very respectful of each other. We've never really had any issues. We've had sort of participants go back and forth at each other, but I think it's out of the passion for what they're trying to do and the information that they're trying to share. But they've always been very respectful of that and my contact information. But I do want to actually add one thing, and because it is sort of brand new that didn't make it into the slide deck. We are very proud to say that we're the first Twitter hashtag community that's actually spinning into a 501c3. So we did it we've basically gone in reverse. So what makes me very proud about that is I feel like we really built the foundation from the ground up. So our 501c3 paperwork is being filed on Monday. And it's
exciting.
a very
That's
exciting
great.
time. And who thought that out of a 4-letter hashtag, you'd actually generate enough interest and need to spin off a 501c3. So we're really, really thrilled. So